Well, good evening, everybody. This is Ann Tripp of WBLS, and welcome very, very much to our town hall with our mayoral candidates. The primary election's a little less than 2 months away. Voters are going to be picking their choices for mayor, controller, city council. For most of us, including yours truly, this is going to be the first time that the balloting will be ranked choice, where voters are allowed to set up to 5 candidates in order of preference, 5. And you want to do 5. You don't want to just put your one name 5 times, because your vote will be missed if that particular person does not rank with other voters. So there are 5 choices you get. So more than ever before, basically, the electorate has to know as much as they can about all the candidates, not just the one you think you prefer right now. Which brings me to our discussion this evening, which is sponsored by AARP New York. And AARP, the national organization, which is the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 years of age and older. We have with us Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, former Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia, former Wall Street exec Ray McGuire, community activist Diane Morales, City Controller Scott Stringer, former Mayoral Council Maya Wiley, and former presidential candidate Andrew Yang. I'd like to thank all of you out there for watching via Facebook Live on WBLS, on YouTube for Hot 97, and on our websites. Now, before we get going, I just have a question for Controller Stringer. There's a lot going on there. I must ask you to respond, if you can, really quickly to the accusations made by Jean Kim. She says that she worked for you about 20 years ago and you constantly groped and propositioned her. Your response, please?
Well, Ann, thank you for giving me the time and space. Let me say that Believe Women is making sure that all women can come forward and tell their stories without an assumption that they're lying. And I respect that, and I agree with that, even when it isn't convenient for me. For so long, our society has been stacked against women who accuse men of misconduct. And I'm truly grateful that our default is transitioning to believing them instead of undermining them. But the truth cannot be collateral damage. And the truth is, I did not do any of what I've been accused of. And I am confident that any inquiry or scrutiny would prove that unequivocally. We are just a matter of weeks away from the primary, and I hope to earn the support of New Yorkers. I continue to campaign my heart out, including attending forums like tonight, while answering any and all further questions on this matter.
Okay, well, let's get on with it. We have a lot of people to talk to and a lot of questions. First question, this pandemic has done what all pandemics have done through the ages. It points out the fissures in the nation's economy and healthcare. How do you intend to get New York City back on its feet without leaving the elderly behind? I'm going in reverse order. Mr. Yang, you're up first.
Oh, well, thank you for having us tonight. And the pandemic has displayed for all of us just how far we have to go in terms of the impact on different racial communities and different demographics. And when I walk the streets of New York, the elderly have too often been isolated. Even now, when we're getting the vaccine out to people, often it's not coming to them, but people have to go to the vaccine. And there's still a lot of mistrust of the vaccine among elderly New Yorkers. So we have to do everything in our power to balance this. And one of the things I hear over and over again from elderly New Yorkers is, frankly, concerns about housing, which I imagine we're going to discuss a little bit later tonight. But the inequities that COVID has laid bare are things that we have to move forward on as quickly as possible. We have an historic opportunity. We're getting billions of dollars in federal aid, and we need to put that aid to work to build an inclusive comeback that focuses on all of the people that unfortunately have suffered the worst during COVID, and that includes the African-American community and the elderly among us, first and foremost.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Wiley?
Well, first, let me just say I believe women too. That means I believe Jean Kim, especially when we hear that there was sexual conduct. And the question is, who do you believe? And consent requires both parties, and Jean Kim says she didn't consent. Now, on this very important question, I'm a civil rights lawyer and a racial justice advocate. I've worked for the ACLU, the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, been doing racial justice all my life. And what we know of COVID is that when we have a crisis like COVID, it is always the Black community, the Latino community. They get hit first hard and worst. But when we recover, We don't recover, all of us, in a crisis, even though we recover every time. So when I am mayor, I will create 100,000 new jobs by spending $10 billion in capital construction. I will local target hiring so that our folks that need jobs get them. But when it comes to seniors, part of what we're going to do with that capital construction budget is make sure we're building things we need built and fixing things we need fixed. And that includes more affordable housing because the rent is too damn high, and it's the worst for our elderly. And so that includes affordable housing where our elderly can truly afford the rent.
Okay, we're going to talk about that later also. Mr. Stringer.
My mother, who passed away at a Bronx hospital during the height of COVID, and she was a senior that just had no chance. And for me, it gave me a sense of just how ill-prepared this city was to deal with a major healthcare crisis. We have got to revamp our healthcare system and deliver equity. We have to reverse decades of disinvestment, especially in communities of color hit hardest by the pandemic. Her doctor told me the night she died in a Bronx hospital that the people who were dying in that hospital of COVID were people of color, 50 and 40 years old. And we can no longer manage illness. We can no longer manage injustice in the healthcare system. I have a comprehensive health plan to address healthcare disparities and improve access, to create a chief health officer to align the public health vision of the city and oversee both the Department of Health and New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation to maximize and coordinate so that we don't have the infighting we saw during COVID. And we have to stabilize H&H's finances so we're not leaving communities without hospitals or healthcare facilities. Tackling racism in the public health system head on is another way to end healthcare deserts. And equally important is the bad decisions government makes about where to put dirty bus depot stations, why we don't have an electrified bus system, why we make poor environmental decisions, all contributes to the health imbalance in communities of color, impacting seniors and people who have pre-existing health conditions.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Morales. Ms. Morales.
Yes, sorry, I was having trouble getting myself off mute. So, to the point of seniors and the elderly, we know that they, before the pandemic, were already struggling or get a minuscule fraction of the city's investments in terms of funding, and really struggle with issues around mobility, isolation, et cetera. I have personally spent the last decade providing services and supports to seniors, and my children have actually spent the last year as frontline essential workers, ensuring that homebound seniors have access to food. We need to make sure moving forward that we are addressing issues around social isolation for our seniors so that they are being given the opportunity not just to socialize with each other, but actually have the support of case managers and caseworkers who are making sure that their needs are being met. We need to make sure that we are providing food access to our seniors who we know are incredibly vulnerable, particularly those who are homebound. We need to make sure that they get access to quality healthcare. We saw the toll that COVID-19 had on this population, whether it's nursing homes or otherwise. And we also need to make sure that that we focus and prioritize accessibility and mobility for our seniors, whether we're talking about access to Access-a-Ride and expanding that fleet, or whether we're talking about our public transportation system, our sidewalks. We really need to invest in our seniors and take care of our seniors because they are a significant and rich resource for our city. And that's what I would prioritize moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGuire.
I so appreciate this question. I am the product of my 95-year-old mother, who at points in time had to work 3 jobs in order to make ends meet, and she decided that she was going to be a social worker. And one of the things that are of most care and interest to her today, it comes down to making certain that she has a home in which she can live and age gracefully and move around in the comfort of her home. It has to do with whether or not she's got access to health care and whether or not she's got access to primary health care, and those physicians who care about her as opposed to her just being a number, but her as a person. It comes down to whether or not she's access to food and healthy food. Many New Yorkers live today in healthcare deserts. It comes down to whether or not if she wants to go to church, how does she get to church? What kind of transportation exists for her to go to church? And it comes down to whether or not she can interact with technology, that kind of elderly technology, and whether or not we have the resources available for that. In my greatest, most inclusive economic comeback plan, it provides for services like this. In housing, it provides for to make certain that we got double the amount of housing for the elderly than what we have now. It provides for making certain that the economy, which is so important, especially the small businesses, are there available when they do get access. There to make certain that we have the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback for their children, many of whom are Black and brown children. And it's make certain that the streets in which she walks are safe and that she doesn't have to fear any bodily harm. So my plan is specifically designed to make certain that the elderly amongst us on whose shoulders we stand and who produce children like us are taken care of, that they have the services that they don't want for anything, and that the availability of those things is easy to them and accessible, and that we show them the kind of love and respect and admiration that they so richly deserve, which is what my plan is designed to do. And the greatest, most inclusive economic comeback in the city, 500,000 jobs focused directly on small businesses and making certain that the services that should be available to the seniors and the elderly are available.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Ms. Garcia.
Yes, our seniors are really the heart and soul of New York City. And this is a place where you should be able to age gracefully. Older adults are also vibrant parts of our community, but we need to ensure that they have the basics, which is in some ways quite shocking. But when I was responsible for delivering food during the height of the pandemic, it was seniors that were the ones who were actually demanding the need. And so we were delivering over 1 million meals a day and distributing another 500,000 because they did not have enough to eat. We need to make sure that all seniors have the food they need. Today, there would be long lines for Meals on Wheels. Even 1 meal a day was hard to get through delivery. But we also know that they suffer from housing inadequacy, that their apartments are not able to accommodate them, that they might have stairs or inaccessible bathrooms. We have to ensure that they are in a space that is safe for them and that we are building the senior housing that meets their needs. But we also need to make sure that they are engaged, that we are creating senior centers that allow them to have a social life. But going beyond that, to talk about how do we use technology, both for socialization and creating programming, but also for telehealth, that we are making it so they get access through telehealth and access to primary care doctors and hospitals to ensure that they stay vibrant as they age in place in New York City. We want everyone to be able to grow old here.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams.
Just so I was on mute. Thank you, Ann. It's imperative as we engage in the conversations around seniors, we look at the holistic approach. Many of our seniors are not accessing what's available to them because it's too difficult. That is why when you look at my plan of 100 plus steps forward for New York City, I talk about the My City card. It is a card that every citizen would have if they desire to use it, and it would sign you up automatically for your benefits. Everything from DRE to SCREED to if you qualify for SNAP. Why are seniors who are dealing with food insecurity have to go and sign up for something when we have their data, their information? We should be signing our seniors up automatically. And then my record around this conversation is just extremely impressive to look at. Everything from Cross Brooklyn, everything from leading the charge of telemedicine, getting First Brooklyn Hospital to do so, and finally getting H&H to do so. But we have invested millions of dollars into seniors, standing up on behalf of the adult daycares, allowing them to be the center of information to ensure that our seniors stay vibrant and age in dignity. And lastly, it's imperative that we create an environment where they can continue to receive the information they need so they don't live in loneliness, something that is impacting the social determinants of health.
Thank you very, very much. Just going to the budget, everybody, and really, really short answers if we can, so we can get everything in. 20% of New York City's residents are over 65, and you know that that percentage is growing, of course. Yet the city's Department of Aging receives a paltry 0.05% of the budget. Do you have any plans to change that? Specifics, please, starting with Mr. Yang.
I love numbers, and those numbers are really, really telling that we're underinvesting in trying to help the seniors among us live here in New York City. And I'm so proud to have been endorsed by the head of the City Council's Committee on Aging, Margaret Chin, who's been leading on trying to make sure that seniors have affordable housing, are able to get around our city. Now, unfortunately, there are public safety issues that we need to address. And Margaret has been a leader in helping activate senior centers and recreation centers so that people, frankly, have places to go where they can spend time together. So we need to invest more in our senior community in ways big and small. I can't wait to lead us in that direction as mayor. My mother is a senior who resembles this, and I think about her day to day. It's such a great place to live, New York City. My mother goes out and enjoys the cultural attractions and the food and the amenities. We have to make sure that, frankly, our seniors are able to live here sustainably because it's becoming all too difficult for far too many of our mothers and the seniors among us.
Okay, Ms. Wiley, please.
Well, this is such a critical question. Let me just say the short answer is, as someone who was endorsed by 1199 SEIU, our essential workers that include our home health aides, includes the workforce that kept working during COVID to make sure folks were cared for, and nurses who work in nursing homes. So I know firsthand, both from them and also from struggling to care for my own mother who had Alzheimer's, that not only do we need to expand the budget and the services, but we need to think very differently about all the resources we're bringing to bear. And I have a very ambitious plan. It's called Universal Care Economy, because women, particularly women of color, lost so many care jobs. One of the things we have to do is bring good quality union jobs back to that work. I'm going to create universal care centers that are not just drop-off centers for our young folks, for children, because that's critically important and one of the top 3 costs of living in the city. But I am also going to make sure we do 2 other things, that those drop-off centers, number 1, include the elderly, so that not only can you drop off a child for quality care because you have a job interview or because you got to go to do a doctor's appointment, but elderly parents also can get the care they need when we can't care for them at home. But the second thing, which is critically important, is to recognize that we need to care for those who care for us and who are struggling to care for families because it's unpaid work. And so I'm going to create $5,000 grants called community care grants, starting with the 100,000 neediest families, to put that money in their pockets so that they can care for their families. And that is going to include folks starting in hard-hit communities, but also folks, whether or not they have documentation, because every resident in this city is our resident.
Mr. Stringer.
Is aging, and we have a housing stock that is not favorable to seniors. There is a generation of New Yorkers who came to communities when no one wanted to invest in and built our neighborhoods. They lived in public housing, they lived in Mitchell-Lama, they lived in rent-stabilized buildings, and they lived in brownstones, especially in Brooklyn, with no rent protection. We have seen them being pushed out of the neighborhoods they built. And we need to reimagine a housing plan that works for them, to keep them in their homes. It's really incredible to think that DFTA commands less than 0.5% of the city budget. That's like a couple of $100 per person. And we can get to a point where we can double that budget. Just look at what this agency is at today. The DIFTA headcount for 2021, we're down to 322 employees. It's declined from 902,000 to 731 in 2017 to just a few hundred now. And I think we have to, with stimulus dollars, with money coming out of the successful legislative session, this is an opportunity to invest in our people, the people who built up our neighborhoods. We cannot continue to keep cutting back from our most needy. And I would just add that as somebody who has probably visited more senior centers around the city than most people have ever seen, the senior centers is a great place to start building 21st century senior centers. Seniors are interested in many different things. They want to have access to the internet, to a whole host of education opportunities. We don't have to just view the senior center as a place where people go to sit, have lunch, and go home. And it would be amazing to give DIFTA that funding and that imagination for all the people who have built our city for all of us.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morales? Ms. Morales.
Hi. So, I'm actually the only candidate in this race who has not just visited senior centers, but actually been responsible for directly providing services to seniors for the last decade. So I'm acutely aware of how underfunded services are. I've also created job training programs to train people to become home health aides successfully. So I think that there's a significant investment that we need to make, not just in seniors, but also in the creation of jobs for people who will take care of our seniors. And the reality of it is we already have the beginnings of that infrastructure. The problem is that we continuously underfund the community-based and human service organizations who are responsible for and charged with taking care of our seniors. So I have committed to actually funding those organizations at the cost that they incur, rather than the current model that reimburses them 80 cents on the dollar. We need to invest in our seniors. They are, as Catherine referenced actually earlier, they're the heart and soul of this city. They have already invested in our city, and the way for us to pay them back actually is to invest in them, invest in the services, and expand the network of human service providers that are taking care of them, and the home health aides and other care workers that are responsible to help them address their issues and improve their quality of life so that they can live comfortably during their later years.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, you referenced a question about the budget, which I think was your original question, and whether or not we should increase that budget.
Yes.
The answer is directly yes, we should. And given my history with budgets, having managed budgets larger than many state budgets in the billions of dollars, and one of the only ones to have been able to do that, the answer is yes, we have the capacity in the existing budget to make sure that we allocate those dollars. We have infrastructure in place, as has been said, but we need to invest in that infrastructure and expand that infrastructure. Community centers will be one. NYCHA homes, we need to open the community centers and the NYCHA homes to make certain that seniors have access to those. We need to make sure that other community centers that can be made available to the seniors that either exist or that can be built as part of my affordable housing plan, that we get access to those. We need to develop what I call a seniors technology core, where we get a bunch of the millennials, we get them together, they partner with our seniors to understand how technology works and how they can access technology. We can do this in community centers. We can also do it in the libraries, on which board I sit, where we've gotten Wi-Fi into the communities, into the branches, to make certain that our children get access to Wi-Fi hotspots. We also need to make certain that our seniors get access to broadband and that they have tablets, so they understand how to make them work, so that they can be part of the technology age and interact, so they don't feel so lonely and so closed out and so disconnected. So the answer is yes, we should increase the budget by more than twice what it is, 3 to 4 times what it is, invest in the programs that are existing, invest in that leadership that connects today with our seniors, with our elderly, get the juniors amongst us to interact with the elderly so that we can develop those relationships, and so that our elderly can have the relationships, and make sure that we have the deeply affordable housing in which they can live and have access to the kind of transportation that allows them to get around. So the answer is yes, unequivocally, we should increase the dollars in the budget. We have the capacity and we should invest.
Thank you very much. Ms. Garcia?
We need to make sure that we are investing in our seniors, but also coordinating beyond just DFTA's budget. There are other services that we need to ensure that they are receiving as seniors that come from other parts of the city's budget, whether or not that is affordable housing or ensuring that every senior has access to SCREE, which will freeze your rent, that we are ensuring that they're automatically enrolled in that, or access to food or access to healthcare, to coordinate this and make that work more for our seniors. But the one thing I'll tell you about senior centers in particular is they're not evenly distributed across the city. There are a lot of them in Manhattan, but you can go up into areas of the Bronx where they just don't even exist. We haven't done a fundamental baseline of what the need is out there, of even where are our older adults? Where do they live now? And are the services where they live? That is the first place we have to start, and ensure that from there, we are adequately investing so that they are leading healthy, safe lives into the future, because they deserve it.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Thank you so much. Yes, the direct answer is yes. I would definitely increase the budget for DFTA, but I agree with Catherine that it is a holistic approach to how we deal with our seniors. Not only look at our senior centers, but again, our adult daycare centers. And how do we ensure that every agency in this city becomes an age-friendly agency, which it is not right now. It is too complex. It's too difficult to navigate the various agencies, and to ensure that our seniors are aware of what they are entitled to. Because you could have the best plans, but if the seniors are not aware of the services they are entitled to, and ensure those who are seniors where English is a second language, we often forget the challenges that they go through as well. This is a city that is not user-friendly to seniors. It is a city that is really built to be user-friendly to those who can move without any form of physical impairment or visual impairment. We need to make this city a city for all New Yorkers, no matter what is the age of the New Yorker, or what physical or visual impairment they may have. Once you build the city around that concept, DFTA's job would be easy, and every agency in this city will have a real senior-friendly plan to ensure our seniors can live in those golden years in a successful way.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. You know, most people 50 and older are actually still in the workplace. I know we're talking about seniors in nursing homes, but a lot of people 50, 60, 70 are still working. And I see someone's hand. And, you know, they have to still, okay, there we go, 2 hands. They have to deal sometimes with the disrespect of ageism in the workplace. That's even though older employees seem more reliable and more efficient, they're still not given credit. What would you do about the disconnect? In other words, going beyond the obligatory campaign picture in a nursing home, shaking hands with elders in wheelchairs, which, you know, everybody running for office does. I'm talking about people who are 50, 60, 70, who are still in the workplace and still dealing with ageism where they work. Mr. Yang.
What a phenomenal question. And I couldn't agree more that 60 is the new 40. There's so many people who have such a wealth of experience. And I think this issue is different in different types of organizations, where I think that many organizations that I've seen benefit tremendously from people who've had more experience. I think that, frankly, the public sector and the nonprofit sector are 2 areas where experience matters a great deal, where if you're trying to solve some of these problems, you know, it's vital to have someone who's been there and actually resolve some of these situations positively. And the organizations that don't recognize the value of seniors, you know, like having run both, well, I've run a private company, a nonprofit, like different types of organizations. Organizations will do what they find to be in their self-interest. And so what we have to do is do a better job of seeing to it that organizations benefit from the experience that some of our older leaders bring to the table. And then you know, it'll be much more natural, frankly, for them to receive their just due and the proper value.
Thank you. Ms. Wiley?
and it's actually unlawful to discriminate in the workplace on the basis of age. And that includes hiring, firing, promotion, but also just how you're being treated, whether or not there's something we call a hostile work environment, meaning people just don't treat you right regularly and repeatedly because of your age. And so we have laws and we have the ability to enforce them with our Human Rights Commission in this city. That is something that I've done as a civil rights lawyer, but it is also something that I have done in city government when that commission reported to me, and I worked to get its budget up. And it does two things. In addition to being able to hear those complaints and issue fines and other kinds of actions as a response to ageism in the workplace, is it does public education. And it is extremely important in this city that we recognize that for far too many of our elderly, particularly in the Black community, age into poverty and do work or seek work for many more years. And so one, we've got to have a retirement system and a safety net for those seniors, but we also have to make sure that folks who want to work can and not be discriminated against. And that means those public education programs as well, and making sure we're tracking and keeping accountable what city government does, which frankly hires over 300,000 people and is also responsible for treating them with dignity on the job. And as mayor, I'm going to bring all those experiences, all those values, and every single thing I have always cared about is justice, and ensure that that is true for our elderly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stringer.
You know, as someone who manages the retirement security of 350,000 retirees in the city, and also manages the future retirees of the city, I know that a lot of our seniors are just getting started in life. Some leave government and want very much to continue to work. And there's no reason why we can't create a workforce development programs and work with CBOs to give former city workers the opportunity to continue to give back, to take advantage of their experience. As controller, I manage an office of 788 individuals. Many are seniors who have been in government for way many years. The great thing to see is the way they mentor the next generation of workers in our office. But I do think that, yes, we have to make sure there's no age discrimination, but we also have to think about how we can get seniors back into the workforce. We have the green economy that is coming here very quickly. We don't need to send seniors back to school for many years. We can micro-credential tools that they need. We can up their IT literacy. 20% of seniors are below the poverty line. Many of them would love to get back in the workforce. We should prioritize that.
Thank you. Ms. Morales? Ms. Morales?
Yes. So as mayor, I would put the full weight of my office behind protecting the rights, the workers' rights of seniors in New York City. That includes, pursuing any kind of action necessary under any circumstance where seniors' rights have been violated in the workplace. And it also includes making sure that they have full access to all of the information about their rights in the workplace. For as long as they are interested in working, they should have the right to do so, and they should have the full protection and the full weight of the law behind ensuring that they're able to do so free of any kind of discrimination.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, if we look at the facts, which are troubling, a large percentage of New Yorkers, especially those who are seniors, will not have benefits after they've decided to transition out of the workforce, out of the traditional workforce. So we need to do whatever we can to begin today to invest in the seniors longer term, which means that we need to invest in making sure that they save for the future and that we help them save for the future. We need also to make sure that as those who desire to leave one workforce or one career, that we make it possible to get the training and the accessibility to another one, so they can move into another kind of profession, another kind of career, and pursue that. We need to make sure that any instance of discrimination with respect to age, along with all the other discriminatory practices for which we stand and denounce. But especially when it comes to our elderly, as you described them, 50s, 60s, who still are quite capable of working, any instance that we see in the public or private spaces, we ought to make sure that we prosecute those instances and hold those institutions accountable and hold those managers accountable, which is what I've done in my job. If ever I saw one of those instances, made certain that those people were reprimanded and many instances dismissed. So we need to make sure that we remain vigilant there. We also need to make certain that as we continue to take care of our seniors, that we do it in a way that allows them their dignity, not specifically designed for that, but they can transition on their terms and not on our terms. And given what I've been able to accomplish in respect of the seniors, we need to do that. I know that we can do that. We need to continue to make the investments.
All right, thank you, Ms. Garcia. You've worn a lot of different hats.
I've worn a lot of different hats. I've actually had to make sure that people did follow the rules, because there are very, 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 very clear laws in the city of New York that you are not allowed to discriminate on the basis of age, period. And, older adults are a huge proportion of our population, and they are vibrant. And many of them are working or want to be working, and we have to protect their right to do that. But we also need to celebrate and be leaders who celebrate having people who are over 50. Can't we say that that's young, the young number? That we are celebrating the accomplishments of people who are older adults in the workforce, as am I, and talking about the contributions that they're making, because they are incredibly important to have in any organization, because they have the experience. They've walked the walk. They know where the pitfalls are. They really do help younger employees understand how to engage with the workforce. So absolutely zero tolerance on any sort of discrimination, but also making sure we are taking a moment and ensuring that we are celebrating their contributions so that they are seen much more broadly as being incredibly important to the economic health of our city.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Adams.
Yes, one, we can have laws on the books, but if they're not properly investigated and you don't put the resources behind ensuring that they are followed, then they're just basically ink on the pad. So we need to staff up our Human Rights Commission so they can thoroughly conduct the investigation when any of these cases involving ageism are created in any atmosphere. Second, I don't believe 50, 60, 70 people have decided to retire. They're very much engaged, and I believe we're losing some of the best assets as we have to deal with the mental health crises as we cycle out of COVID-19. Many of our seniors have lived through substantial crises, and they are a population. I believe they are a part of a population that can really help many of our young people who are going through and trying to adjust to the crises that we are experiencing right now. We need to find the dollars to create those intergenerational experiences. And this is an excellent opportunity to do so. And most importantly, some of my best staffers at Borough Hall and in the State Senate were those who were considered among the senior population, dedicated, committed, fully engaged. And that is how we have a city that's a holistic approach to running the city.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Now, everybody has kind of touched on the homeless situation, people who are elderly, where do they live? Their rent is too much. But I just want to talk about really quickly seniors who are homeless and nearly homeless, maybe living on a relative's couch. What would you do about getting them into senior housing sooner? The wait is long. They have these senior housing buildings, but it's very difficult for them to get in. It takes a long time. Are there many of them? Do they need to be more of them? We don't have that much time, so we're going to go really quickly. Mr. Yang.
We need to build more senior housing and affordable senior housing as quickly as possible. And for the seniors who are in this position, hopefully we can utilize some of the properties that right now are underutilized, which includes hotels. And I just announced a massive investment in affordable housing that will convert unused hotels and some commercial office spaces into affordable housing, 30,000 units a year over the next 4 or 8 years. But for the folks who are in the situation now, we have to be able to do more to connect them with, frankly, some of the empty buildings and sites that are around our city. We've seen that we've done this, frankly, with some other populations, and we can do this more for our seniors who right now are in positions or situations that aren't sustainable.
Thank you. Ms. Wiley.
You know, it really is critical that we as a city have more support for the community-based human service providers who already have relationships with so many families and so many people and provide it at the community level in order to identify who those folks are. And city government has the opportunity to be smarter by organizing a single entry point portal for folks who are elderly for a range of services. You know, in my campaign, and as a leader who's always worked on building policy strategies that work to make a difference in everyone's lives, that one of the things that we did as a campaign was have a people's assembly specifically on the issue of our seniors and how better to serve them. And we had advocates and experts and residents, folks just having the experience of trying to navigate this city. And the thing that it made very clear is we're simply not being attentive enough to the fact that our services are being provided in a fragmented way. So we have to make it easier both to have the relationships to identify who needs the services and then the pipeline to connect them to the housing affordability we're creating. Because in a Maya Wiley administration, we're going to make sure that the rent is not too damn high, but that the rent is one finally everyone can afford.
Okay, Mr. Stringer, thank you.
So there is a critical need to simply build housing units for seniors. And the best place to start is to really finish and adopt a proposal by Metro IAF, Pastor Broiley in Brooklyn. Their proposal is to provide 15,000 units of senior housing on NYCHA property, because so many NYCHA residents and future residents are seniors. Let's put the seniors in that position. My housing plan overall will help keep seniors in the homes because we're going to prioritize the preservation of housing. And as mayor, I do think it's critical that we got to clear the roadblocks that prevent homeowners from utilizing accessory dwelling units like basements and garages, because those rental units can make homeownership sustainable, because as you get to a certain age and you reduce your income and you have a small pension, and it is critical that their income is available. And I think we should clear those roadblocks for people to add rental income.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. Ms. Morales.
So I have already declared that housing is a right, a human right for everyone in New York City, and that I will prioritize actually ensuring that everyone has access to housing that is affordable. That includes our seniors. It includes ensuring that the seniors that are home, that currently have a home, are able to age in place by providing them with the supports that they need in order to continue functioning independently for as long as possible. It also includes ensuring that any new housing, whether it's renovated, converted, or new construction that is created, actually provides for the appropriate number of units for seniors as projected. We know the numbers, we know what our population is in New York City, including the significant increase and investment in supportive housing, again, so that we can ensure that our seniors are having access to the resources, services, and supports that they need so that they can live independently in dignity and continue to be part of the community.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire.
Yeah, we all are talking about having a housing plan. The situation which you described is a situation that has a sense of urgency, not a sense of urgency, but has real urgency to it. So the thing that we need to do, and I have a housing plan as well, which includes increasing the New York City housing stock by 10%, 350,000 units, including and especially for doubling at least the number of units that we have for the elderly with wraparound services. And there are examples of that which I'm describing that exist already. So we need to do that. We need to build. I know how I can build. I can pay for it, recognizing what it's going to cost and know what it is, what the difference is between an operating budget and a capital budget. So I know how to get that done. immediately what we need to do is to use the existing housing stock, convert some of the hotel spaces, but also convert some of the existing homes for that the small property owners use or have, converting some of the basements, as has been said, and making certain that the available housing units that we have, that we actually fill that available units. And we need to invest in the community-based organizations that are close to this. The other thing that we need to do, which we haven't touched upon, is the amount of technology or fraud that takes place, the advantage that is taking place by others of our elderly. And we need to focus on that and make certain that we have enough enforcement, enough people who understand what's taking place there. The CBOs, the community-based organizations to intervene to see where those instances have taken place. Also, we need to address what's taking place with abuse of the elderly. We need to have systems in place. We need to have sensitivity in place, which means that in addition to building and getting homes for the elderly, we need to make sure that we have the services for the elderly, which many of the community-based organizations can do, and we need to invest there and highlight and prioritize the challenges that the elderly are now incurring, and let's make sure that we address them. But we can't wait for this. This is urgent. The situation that you described is urgent. We need to have urgent intervention.
All right, thank you. Ms. Garcia.
Thank you. And it's the very specific thing that you're talking about is the homeless elders among us. But let's be really clear. We do not build enough affordable housing at any level. We don't build enough housing at any level. And the reason it takes a long time is there just aren't units for seniors. They fill up like that as soon as they are available. We need to think creatively about using our housing voucher and also assisting to make sure that those apartments have the accessibility that someone who is an older adult might need. Because we know that if you are in a homeless shelter, it is going to cost 3 times as much than if we get you into a permanent home. The challenge is it's just been so scarce for far too long. That is why I have a plan to immediately tackle this so that we don't have people waiting on couches or in shelters, and that we have a real permanent housing focus for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Adams.
Yes, thank you. And again, I'm happy that we have a report that we put on our website, 100 Plus Step Forward for New York City, months ago when I talked about the conversions of hotels, when I talked about building out office spaces. We're not going to see the same amount of footprint needed in office spaces, but we also should look at what the New York City Foundation for Senior Citizens, they have been stating, home sharing is something that's underutilized. It would allow those homeowners who are struggling to meet their mortgages or to pay their mortgages. Home sharing, the service would vet the potential tenant to make sure that they are good tenants, and you can share the home with seniors. So we need to think differently about this and ensure that we do not leave any stone unturned to deal with our senior population. And I'm a big believer when we talk about affordable housing being built, particularly senior housing, we should look towards our faith-based institutions. When I was able to do a mapping of all of my faith-based institutions to let them know what their building rights and how they can build better, we can create those partnerships to really have the senior housing that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time, so I'm going to ask you, as mayor, each of you, what program would you eliminate? And give me 1 or 2 sentences at max as to why. What program would you eliminate, Mr. Yang?
I think the goals of Thrive were worthy, but I think there are aspects of it that we should re-examine. Certainly, I would keep the helpline, but there are other aspects that I think we should potentially move on from.
Thank you. Ms. Wiley.
Well, let me just say, it would not be our mental health services, because a number of the programs that are in Thrive were programs that existed before Thrive. And what we need to do is grow mental health services and supports. But what I would definitely eliminate are some units in the New York City Police Department that frankly have not served us. In fact, have made us vulnerable to police abuse, like the Vice unit, the Vice squad. And I am actually going to reallocate $1 billion from the police budget in order to ensure that in our communities, we have gun violence prevention programs that actually ensure that our kids get trauma-informed care, the kinds of things that deal with mental trauma from being in communities with high rates of violence, because that brings violence down and graduation rates up.
Okay, sorry, I got to cut you off and just give everybody time. Mr. Stringer?
I'm going to associate my remarks with what Andrew said about Thrive. Look, I've looked at that program, and yes, there are good services there, but it's opaque. It's not transparent. We don't see what's working and what's not. And I do think we have an opportunity to reallocate funding there, to also recognize some of the challenges our young people are going to have in the public school system, how we are going to have to set up a mental health system, not just for teenagers committing suicide, but also kids my son's ages, because this is, as they come back, they're going to have issues we have to deal with.
Okay, Ms. Morales?
So I was the first candidate to call for defunding of the police, and I'm the only candidate to call for doing that by $3 billion. And that includes removing school safety officers from our school system and actually replacing them with supportive services that will actually help our students thrive and be able to learn in schools rather than initiating the school to prison pipeline. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. Mr. McGuire?
I would invest in mental health. I would restructure Thrive. I would not eliminate it. I would invest in and restructure.
Ms. Garcia? Ms. Garcia, I think you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Been there. I would remove $130 million from the headquarters at DOE and make sure that was redistributed directly to serve children in the classroom.
Thank you. Mr. Adams?
I would eliminate how we handle street homelessness. It's a revolving door system. Instead of doing it the way we're doing it, I would invest in places like Fountain House so we could ensure that we place our homeless men and women in sustainable wraparound services, supportive housing.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a lightning round because we're ending, and we just want a yes or a no answer, or maybe yes, no, maybe answer, maybe 3 words, but that's all it is. Okay, first thing, seniors, whether still in the workplace or not, are victimized by scams. We talked about that briefly, as well as physical violence. Do you favor strengthening the legal effort to deal with all the crimes committed against the elderly? Yes or no? Mr. Adams, to go the reverse order.
Yes, I do.
Next, Ms. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. McGuire.
Yes.
Ms. Morales.
Yes.
Mr. Stringer. Mr. Stringer.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Wiley.
Yes.
And Mr. Yang.
Heck yes.
All right, do you think the rich in this city should be taxed more? Mr. Adams.
Yes, I do.
Ms. Garcia.
If we need it. Maybe, if we need it.
So maybe is your answer. Mr. McGuire.
No, we don't need it now, given what's been given from the federal government and Albany.
Ms. Morales.
Yes.
Mr. Stringer.
Yes.
Ms. Wiley.
Yes.
Mr. Yang.
Yes, but you have to do it in the right way.
Okay. Do you support a family caregiver tax credit? Mr. Adams.
Yes, as well as my New York City aid with earned income tax credits.
Okay. Ms. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. McGuire.
Yes.
Ms. Morales.
Yes, absolutely.
And Mr. Stringer.
Yes.
Ms. Wiley.
Yes, in addition to my care grants.
Okay. Mr. Yang.
Yes.
And what about those tax credit for those who put their kids in parochial or charter schools? Mr. Adams.
Maybe need to look at the program completely.
That's a maybe. Ms. Garcia.
Maybe.
Another maybe. Mr. McGuire.
Maybe.
It's a lot of maybes. Ms. Morales.
No.
No. Mr. Stringer.
No.
Ms. Wiley.
I'm going to focus on the schools I can get dollars into, focus on the 1.1 million.
Is that a yes, a no, or a maybe? No. Mr. Yang.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Do you think that we should have special admissions tests for our specialized high schools? Mr. Adams.
Yes, some form of the 5 new schools also. Yes, but 5 new schools also.
Add 5 new schools. Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. McGuire.
Just repeat the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do you think that we should have special admissions tests for our specialized high schools?
In addition to other criteria. Yes, in addition to other criteria.
Okay, Ms. Morales,
No.
Mr. Stringer.
I would not continue the Shazat after today's data. It's pretty obvious things have to change.
So that's a no or yes?
No.
No. Ms. Wiley.
No discriminatory admissions practices, no Shazat.
No.
If that's the question, no.
Okay, Mr. Yang.
Yes, in addition to other criteria, and yes to new schools.
Okay, this would be a word when it comes to policing. Better training or culture change? Mr. Adams.
Culture change.
Ms. Garcia.
Culture change.
Mr. McGuire.
Culture change.
Ms. Morales.
None of the above. Do I have to pick one of those two?
Oh, no, well, no. What do you think is with just one word though, to change the way we police this town?
Fund the people.
Funding. Okay, fund the people. All right, Mr. Stringer.
Fund the people.
Fund the people, Mr. Stringer. Well, should it be a culture change or better training for our police, Mr. Stringer?
Culture and fund the people.
Okay, Ms. Wiley.
You can't change culture without also changing training. You need both. So it's both.
So your answer is both. Mr. Yang.
Both.
All right. Should we extend the eviction moratorium in this town from May 1st till August 31st? That long. A lot of landlords are screaming about that. Mr. Adams.
Yes, as long as we give mortgage relief as well.
Okay, Ms. Garcia.
Yes, if we do not start allocating the money that the federal government and the state government have given us to relieve tenants of their their burden on rent.
Okay, Mr. McGuire.
Yes, we should, but make certain that the landlords are also included in whatever moratorium that we extend.
Okay, Ms. Morales.
Yes, with the appropriate protections for small homeowners.
Okay, Mr. Stringer.
Yes, but a strategy to make mortgages hold for small landlords.
All right, Ms. Wiley.
Yes, and I already have the plan at mywileyformayor.com to do just what everyone's talking about.
Okay, Mr. Yang.
Yes, as long as relief is also directed towards small landlords.
Okay, and this is just one final question as in the city, but do you think that the Social Security eligibility age be pushed even higher, like 72, 79? Do you think that should be even higher? Mr. Adams?
Not sure.
Not sure. Ms. Garcia?
I'm just going to make it so I work longer. I think that 65 is a good age.
Mr. McGuire?
Maybe.
Maybe Ms. Morales?
No.
No. Mr. Stringer?
Today's my birthday. I'm getting very close, so no.
No. Happy birthday, Ms. Wiley.
No, in fact, all the research for Black folks is we need to make it younger because we die sooner and we get cheated out of our Social Security dollars.
Okay, Mr. Yang. Oh, you're right. Mr. Yang.
No.
Okay, we're coming up. We got like a minute. I just want to thank everybody. I do want to point out that thank you for coming, everyone. You're great. AARP, this is the magazine for this month. George Clooney's on it. It has a lot of stuff on handling your own money, folks. And this one is their bulletin. It's all about fraud, how you can tell when somebody's trying to entrap you, find out your business, and how you can get ready and get out of it if you have been trapped and you are a victim of fraud. I want to thank everybody. Tonight's Candidates Forum, sponsored by AARP New York. And I'd like to thank our guests once more, Eric Adams, Catherine Garcia, Ray McGuire, Diane Morales, Scott Stringer, Maya Wiley, and Andrew Yang. Again, thanks for joining us this evening. All praises to AARP New York for their sponsorship. And this is Ann Tripp. Catch me tomorrow morning, if I'm awake, on the Steve Harvey Morning Show. And enjoy, everybody else, the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.